284 laps led. 2 stages swept. One of the most dominant single-car performances of the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season. Third place finish. That is the sentence that defines what happened at Bristol Motor Speedway on April 12, 2026, and it raises a question that every serious NASCAR fan needs to sit with: how does the best car at Bristol leave without the trophy? This is not a story about failure. This is not a story about a driver who simply wasn't good enough. This is a story about a race that was won and lost in layers, over hundreds of laps, through moments that barely registered in real time until it was already too late to undo them. By the time the checkered flag flew, the number 5 Chevrolet was sitting in third place. Kyle Larson was giving one of the most honest post-race interviews of his career, and a 23-year-old named Ty Gibbs was climbing out of his car in victory lane with tears in his eyes and his grandfather's arms around him. Sitting 6th in points with 230 points, the speed was clearly present across multiple weekends, but victory lane had not come. Bristol, however, is not just any track for Larson. His comfort level at the half-mile concrete oval is well documented, and his feel for groove changes at Bristol historically separates him from most of the field. He arrived at race week speaking with the confidence of someone who understood exactly what the track was asking of him. Ryan Blaney entered the weekend as the other marquee name. He claimed pole position and posted the fastest car in practice across every long-run simulation. Before a single green flag lap was turned in the race, Blaney was the clear benchmark. The expectation heading into race day was simple: Larson and Blaney would control this race. And for most of the afternoon, that is exactly what happened. Larson did not start from the front. He lined up 8th and worked his way to the lead in just 44 laps on one of the most difficult tracks on the entire circuit to pass on. That charge alone tells you everything you need to know about where his car stood relative to the field. He won Stage 1 over Christopher Bell, Blaney, and Chase Briscoe. In Stage 2, he led all but one of 125 laps and swept both stages for the third time in his career. The number 5 Chevrolet was simply in a different zip code for long stretches of the afternoon. During that run, Larson surpassed 2,000 career laps led at Bristol Motor Speedway, becoming the 9th driver in NASCAR history to reach that milestone at the track. The dominance was not subtle. It was complete. But here is the detail that Larson himself acknowledged openly after the race: Blaney had the faster car. The only reason Larson was leading was because Blaney's pit crew kept erasing the on-track advantage every time the cars came to pit road. Blaney's crew ranked 32nd out of 37 teams on Sunday. Through the first 7 races of the season, Blaney's team had already lost 85 positions on Pittsburgh Road, 30 worse than the next closest team. Larson understood this dynamic in real time. He knew the equation. He knew it was only a matter of time before it shifted. The race was already operating on borrowed time for the number 5 team, and most of the broadcast didn't even know it yet. Before Blaney's crew issues even fully resolved themselves, Larson had already handed himself a problem that would cost him dearly in the closing laps. During Stage 2, a radio miscommunication occurred between Larson and his spotter Tyler Moyer. Moyer told Larson there were 50 laps to go. Larson heard 15. The result: Larson pushed the car significantly harder and far earlier than the strategy required. He burned tire life that was supposed to last. He spent energy on a run that should have been carefully managed. He still won the stage, which is a testament to the speed in that car, but the cost did not show up in Stage 2. It showed up later, in the worst possible moment, when there was nothing left to do about it. This is how Bristol quietly began to slip away from Kyle Larson, even as he still appeared completely in control from the outside. The miscommunication did not blow the race up in a single moment. It compounded. It revealed itself later. That is the nature of this kind of mistake at a track where tire management is the difference between winning and losing. While Larson and Blaney dominated the leaderboard, a third name was quietly building toward something. Ty Gibbs, driving the number 54 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota, started 5th and got shuffled back to 14th in the early running. Through Stage 1 and Stage 2, he climbed top 5 in each stage, ending Stage 2 in 7th. The 54 car was not making headlines. It was making position. The backstory on Gibbs is important context for everything that followed. He is the grandson of NASCAR Hall of Famer and former Super Bowl winning coach Joe Gibbs. He is the son of the late Coy Gibbs, who passed away in his sleep on November 6, 2022, just hours after Ty won the Xfinity Series championship. Entering Bristol, Gibbs had 130 Cup starts and 0 wins. carrying the weight of legacy and loss into every race he ran. Something had changed entering April 12. Gibbs had recorded 5 straight top 6 finishes. Crew chief Tyler Allen had been building toward a strategy philosophy that was about to define an entire afternoon. The race was about to stop being about who was fastest and start being about who was smartest. With 22 laps remaining, Chase Elliott spun and brought out the 8th caution of the afternoon. The field faced the most critical decision of the race at the worst possible moment. 3 contenders. 3 completely different calls. Gibbs stayed out. He held track position on tires that were nearly 100 laps old and inherited the lead. On the radio during the caution, Gibbs said, "I don't want to give up track position at all." Crew chief Tyler Allen honored the call. Larson came to pit road and took 2 fresh tires, restarting 6th. Blaney took 4 fresh tires and restarted 7th. None of these 3 decisions was obviously wrong in the moment. Each one represented a legitimate strategic path to victory lane. What happened next was determined not by who made the right call, but by who executed it best. The restart became a war between track position and tire advantage. Larson charged to 3rd almost immediately. Blaney also closed hard from 7th. But Gibbs, on tires nearly 100 laps old, held the line in front of 2 of the most experienced drivers in the sport. Just when it appeared Gibbs might manage the gap to the finish, Kyle Busch spun Riley Herbst in what appeared to be deliberate retaliation for an earlier incident. The caution flew with 4 laps remaining. The race went to overtime, the first overtime period at Bristol in 11 years. Reset, Gibbs out front on ancient tires. Blaney and Larson directly behind him with rubber nearly 100 laps fresher. On paper, this should not have been a close race to the finish. 2 former Cup Series champions with a massive tire advantage against a first-time winner running tires that had no business still performing at race pace. Bristol does not follow paper. The final 2 laps played out in front of a crowd that had just watched a technically dominant performance unravel into something no simulation could have predicted. Blaney went side by side with Gibbs through the final lap, sliding, drag racing, neither driver lifting. Gibbs crossed the finish line first by 0.055 seconds, the closest finish at Bristol since Rusty Wallace beat Ernie Irvan by 1 foot in April of 1991. Larson finished 0.229 seconds behind in 3rd. Gibbs became the 6th driver in NASCAR history to earn his first Cup win at Bristol, joining Dale Earnhardt, 1979, Rusty Wallace, 1986, Ernie Irvan, 1990, Elliott Sadler, 2001, and Kurt Busch, 2002. Larson's post-race assessment was direct. He did not deflect. He did not search for external explanations. He acknowledged that Blaney had the best car all day and credited Blaney's pit crew struggles for allowing him to lead as many laps as he did. He addressed the final stint plainly. His last run was his worst of the afternoon, adjustments were being made, and he got a little out of the groove. On the strategy chaos at the end, he said simply, "They were just better than me on the strategy scramble." He closed with one sentence, "Got crazy at the end with the strategy and still finished 3rd. I'll take it." There is a tension underneath those words that the quote itself does not fully carry. That is not a satisfied driver. That is a driver who completely understands what was on the table and what was not converted. The winless streak for Kyle Larson now stands at 32 consecutive races, dating back to May 11, 2025 at Kansas Speedway. For a defending Cup Series champion, that number is significant and demands attention. The speed has been present. The results have not aligned. Victory Lane at Bristol on April 12 was not a standard trophy presentation. Gibbs climbed out and was immediately surrounded by his mother Heather, his grandfather Joe, and his cousin Jackson, who serves as a tire changer on the number 54 crew. Gibbs said, "I'd love for my father to have seen this. I knew he knew it was going to happen and expected it." Joe Gibbs spoke about his late son, "When I think about Coy, he brought Ty up the entire time. I know he's probably watching." Ryan Blaney, despite finishing just 0.055 seconds behind, stopped to offer genuine congratulations. He remembered his own first win, acknowledged what that moment feels like, and noted that Gibbs has handled outside criticism with class throughout his career. That acknowledgement, from a competitor who just lost by the length of a bumper, added something to the moment that a normal victory lane celebration rarely carries. The broader implications of Bristol extend well beyond Gibbs' first win. Blaney's pit crew situation is now one of the defining storylines of the 2026 season. 11 positions lost on pit road at Bristol alone, 85 total through 8 races, 30 worse than any other team. Blaney addressed it directly after the race. This is a championship-level problem being carried by a championship-level driver, and it is not a new issue. Tyler Reddick continues to lead the 2026 championship standings, but his points advantage over Blaney shrank to 62 following Bristol. Larson sits sixth with 260 points, 5 top 10s in 8 races, and a car that is consistently capable of winning. The drought is not a speed story. The 32-race winless streak is a story about execution, strategy, timing, and fortune, and how rarely all 4 align perfectly in a single afternoon. Gibbs now carries a 6-race top 10 streak and, most importantly, the confidence of a first career win into every race that follows. The weight of being winless is gone. What replaces it at Joe Gibbs Racing is a driver and crew chief who just proved they can outstrategize a field that included 2 former champions at a track where mistakes are amplified by every lap. The NASCAR Cup Series moves to Kansas Speedway on April 19 for the Advent Health 400. Kansas Speedway is the site of Kyle Larson's last Cup Series win, May 11, 2025. Every race since that day has added to a streak that now stands at 32 consecutive starts without a victory. Hendrick Motorsports has won 3 of the last 4 races at Kansas, and both Larson and Chase Elliott won there in 2025. The track sets up well for the number 5 Chevrolet on paper. But Bristol just proved that paper means nothing when the race goes to overtime. The best car at Bristol did not win. The most laps led did not win. The right call under caution, the nerve to hold off 2 champions on 100-lap-old tires, that is what won. The question heading into Kansas is not whether Kyle Larson's car will be fast. It almost certainly will be. The question is whether everything else, strategy, communication, timing, the absence of a radio miscommunication that burns critical tire life 50 laps too early, can align when the moment arrives. At Bristol, it did not. The 32-race drought continues. Kansas is next, and the track owes Kyle Larson nothing. If you made it this far, you already know this sport is never just about who has the fastest car, and Bristol proved that better than any race in the 2026 Cup Series season so far. Hit that like button right now and subscribe so you never miss the next breakdown. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did Larson get robbed at Bristol, or did Ty Gibbs and Tyler Allen simply outthink everyone when it mattered most? Let us hear it below.